So this is part 2 of ORCAS Island Landing, and I'm calling it Shaw in the Distance, but it really could have been called More Madrona, More Leaves. I'm still working on the tree, and the second half of this video I'm moving off to the island, but I have to do more on this tree, and I'm kind of got a system here where alternating light areas of bunches of leaves and then coming back and putting in shaded areas, and really sticking to a mixture of primarily sap green with a little bit of olive green, a little bit of hooker's green, and every now and then I'll touch like a burnt umber to add with it. But for the lighter green, I'm sticking pretty much with a dilute sap and occasionally adding a little yellow to that. And so this is allowing one layer to dry and then coming back and overlaying it with another. And the paper's not particularly wet. There's a little bit of masking still on there, which will be removed shortly. And I'm going to be doing the trunks, which on a magnolia, I've found that it works pretty well using burnt sienna and a little bit of raw sienna, a touch of yellow ochre here and there for some highlights. And then as you get into shaded areas, if you add just a little bit of cerulean blue, it will really push it deep into the tree. The blue gives it a nice shadow casting. And it's hard to figure out. These trees are so complex. I could spend forever on it. But my style is getting a little bit looser as I progress, but just because I don't want to be doing it forever. And I kind of like what I'm getting. It's hard to tell at this point, but I'm being careful because I'm working over not only the distant hill of Shaw Island, but also the water that's in the bay will be behind this tree, and also I'll have the ferry to contend with. So I don't want to get carried away and have to remove all kinds of leaves and stuff in order to paint the primary objects in the painting, the main focus of the painting being the ferry and the landing and all of that in the foreground. So the trees in the foreground, and you have to honor that. Things that are close to you, you're going to be able to see them fairly distinctly. So that's part of why this is such an involved process. It's really after you do a little bit, the technique's easy enough. It's just that it takes a lot of time. So I'm going back and forth from a dark mixture to a light one, and I'm drying it with a hair dryer in between applications. Try not to do too much with one mixture on the brush, as always. I keep creating a different mix from the palette. And when I'm blending and making color on the palette, I try not to overdo that either. I like a little bit of variance in the mixture itself, so that when you load your brush, that comes onto the brush, and you don't have just one flat value or hue. So sometimes it's a little bit of a surprise, and that's fine. So what I'm going to be doing here then in the remainder of this video is continue working with putting in the trunks, lots of little details to be added as I go forward in this, but I don't want to be just concentrating on one thing here forever. So I'm going to be moving off into the distance as I get deeper into this video, So in the meantime, I plan to speed it up, as I often do, and you'll be able to see the technique. But I'm going to add some music because there's not a whole lot I can say about this other than it takes a bit of patience. And, you know, if you run out of patience, you can ruin your work. So you got to kind of pay your dues. Yeah, if you want, you know, a great result, you've got to invest the time. So hang in there, and we will get to that Shaw Island eventually. Well, I'll say this too about the water. I put in some kind of a very light value for the water, which I'll be going over in the future, but I just use a very, very light mix of cobalt. So when you see the blue applied, that's really all it is. It's just a cobalt blue, very dilute, and it dries very light. But it's a different, you'll see the difference between that and what was done in the sky. So thanks for hanging in there, and I'll pick it up when I get to those to the island and start working on those trees. I'll have some things to say about that. So now I'm ready to start working on Shaw Island in the distance, finally. And I've got that area all dampened and ready to go. I have my masking still for the sky in case I splatter up there. And what I'm doing here is just with a flat, just touching in some color on the horizon there. Very small strokes to indicate the distance, because these are going to be very, very small trees to our eye since they're so far away. Predominantly evergreen, and for that I'm using a mixture of primarily Hooker's green, and I'll touch in with a bit of burnt umber to tone it down, or in areas I'll use a little bit of Payne's gray added to it to tone it down a little bit more. And I don't want the color too vivid because of the distance. I want the kind of an atmospheric perspective, so I'd like to keep it kind of dilute and work my way up. Actually, as you work down in the picture plane, the colors are going to get deeper and a little more chroma to the hue. And you'll be able to see individual trees closer to the water line, but not up on the top of the hill, way off in the distance. So just little tiny strokes, just touching in, not really brushing anything in, just using the tip of the brush. And want to create an irregular line across for the treetops on the hill, way off. This island also has a structure over there. I think it's a home. I couldn't see it that clearly, but I indicate it with a little bit of well, for the body of the house, I just used some burnt umber with a touch of crimson added to it, just to set it off a little bit against the green background. And then the roof is pretty much a gray with shadows of the trees streaked across it. But nothing's really in focus with that much distance, so there's not much detail to it. It'll appear later on as I work my way down. The other thing, the trees get much larger, and then some of the evergreens are more defined down toward the water line. As there's also some bank area that's done mostly with raw umber, and put that raw umber in, and then over the top of that, to indicate growth and bushes and what have you, I've added some more kind of hookers with various browns mixed into them to look like kind of low growth. And that's up around the building and between some of the trees. But working across here, I try to keep changing the mixture on my brush, even though it's really all pretty close. As it dries, you can see it, where the different loads of color were added. Some leans a little bit more to the brown, and other areas lean to a little bit of blue, actually. But I want to separate it from the leaves on Madrona. I don't want that same green. And there is some of the hill that can be seen through the Madrona, so I'm attending to that also. So I'll be working my way down to the water, and I'm not going to do anything on the water. I actually have it covered up also with some, it's like a wax paper, and I'll be finishing that one up on the next time around when I get to paint the ferry, or at least start it, and that should be fun. So as I move through this, I'll speed it up some, as I typically do, and you'll see how this all develops. And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks. bye.